So recently, another mass issue had come out, and there's various topics, and I might have said this to you before, but I can always tell who wrote it based on just the title of it. Like, I'm all right, this is very
Mm,
clearly like a Zordos article versus a Trexler. And I skipped one this past week because I knew you were coming on, so I was like, well, let's just discuss the idea of it, which was peak week. And
mm,
people I know for years it's been said there was a lot of misconceptions and stuff that had came over from professional bodybuilding. So I actually don't know your current stance on it. I know for a long
mm.
time it was discussed like, hey, you don't need to do any manipulation. Don't manipulate sodium. Don't manipulate water. Are you guys still kind of in that camp, or where are you at now?
No, I think I've evolved beyond that. I think that was almost a reactionary position to people doing things that were typically harming them, either performance-wise or literally health. And I was almost just more of an advocate of repeating the things that Elaine Norton was saying early on.
Mm-hmm.
You're not holding water, you're holding fat, you need to get leaner, and doing all these things, at least in naturals, is more likely just to make you look flat. Um, and I think that is true, but it almost discounted how much of a benefit you can get out of being fully carb loaded and then not having any carb related water retention, which is relatively minor compared to what maybe someone who is running a boat ton of androgenic compounds, DNP, and using diuretics to get rid of it is dealing with.
Right.
But it does make a visual difference. And anyone will tell you like spilling over is a thing. And what I would describe as a load look is a thing. Like the process of carbohydrate loading, not for everyone, but for most people, is you are looking bigger and worse. And then, overnight it cleans up, kind of you get back to your normal water compartment homeostasis, and then you're still carb loaded, and you kind of have the combination of definition and fullness. And I used to say, like, you just don't want to mess things up. You want to look just as good as you did during your diet. Um, but I think with how flat you can get when you've been dieting hard, like, dude, the way my physique looks on 5 low days between 1,400 to 1,700 calories, when I'm really, really lean, my body is trying to hold on to fat. So it's like, no, you can use all this glycogen first. And, taking in, 12 to 15,000 steps per day, like I look substantially smaller and much more like a swimmer. And then if you look at my stage shots, you're like, oh, you look big. Like I wouldn't have expected that.
Mm.
And I could show someone that. Just the fullness difference, I think, is quite dramatic from most depleted to peaked. Um, and it's probably more along the lines of like a 10% improvement in someone's physique, even in
Wow.
natural bodybuilding, you
Really?
know? Yeah, I mean, I probably could demonstrate that if I just showed you. I mean, not on a podcast format, but like Dave, like if you remind me, I will send you a picture or a video of me, like my most depleted versus stage shot. And obviously,
Yeah.
that's compounded by all the lighting stuff we already talked about. I won't rehash it, but I think even with those differences, you'd be like, God damn, like that's notably different.
So, how do you feel? Like, I mean, not just in terms of hunger depletion. I mean, talking to you, like, I would never expect that you were, in the middle of so many different competitions now. Like, I know that's been an evolution over the years of handling it. But not only how do you feel physically, but even just psychologically. Like, obviously, it is hard. I mean, I know for me, it's one of the hardest things about dieting is to feel smaller, to work so hard, and
Mm.
by your own, comments earlier, you're the same weight as after 3 years of lifting, right? So is it still hard for you at all psychologically to walk around and say like, hey, I've got to, maybe cover up or anything, or you just don't even care about that anymore?
I think the way you look in clothes that are not tight is is psychologically hard to deal with. Um, and I actually have almost two different wardrobes
Mm-hmm.
for when I'm in shape and when I'm not, because literally things do not fit. It looks comical either way. Like I have my shorts synced up to the point where like they're bunched up and look crazy if they're off season shorts, or the clothes will just literally not fit my body in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, I get up in the morning and we take a walk and we grab some breakfast, and I'll just throw on a baggy shirt and some pants. And I think people at this stage, especially if they've seen me previously, think I'm ill. because of just how much I lose in my face and how much
Yeah.
my like every reel I put up right now on Instagram, it doesn't matter what I'm talking about, Dave. Like the first comment is like death march face or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, you know? And I'm like, oh, they're gonna love this. This is a really cool study that goes into protein metabolism. Like, yo, Eric, your face. And I'm like, fuck,
Yeah.
like I'm distracting people from the education I'm trying to provide them.
Right.
So getting into and there's a big difference even between when I was 83, and probably around 8 or 9% body fat, and now where I'm whatever I am now, but walking around 3-4 kilos lighter.
Hmm.
That level of leanness is something that you just don't see on a regular basis. Or when you do, it's someone who is typically almost always like that. It's like your really low natural body fat set point endurance athlete who like cycles into the office and he just always has like the shredded cheekbones and he's skinny. It's not a really muscular guy. And most muscular people, 99.9% of them only look like that for a brief phase and they
Yeah.
bulk back up. Right. So, and, I only compete every 4 years. It'll probably be a little more frequent now that I'm going to be much more invested in bodybuilding as a pro, but it's still going to be, you know, a, a quarter of the time at most. And then
Yeah.
that's not true. It's a quarter of the time dieting, and then only like the last third of the time spent in the diet where you look like that. So it's quite dramatic. Um, and it's the kind of thing where if I put on a stringer and I go to the gym, I look amazing,
Mhm.
and it's like, I'm in good lighting and all that. Like I do look a little like if it's on multiple low days, I look a little stringy or a little sick in the face and maybe not the ideal way you'd want to look, but it is such a dramatic difference to when you were just walking around wearing baggy clothes. And I think seeing that contrast, it makes you invest a little bit less in both, to be honest.
Yeah. Right.
Um, so yeah, I think, the stage weight, the weight is something I get over because you kind of flip a switch. At least I do. There are maybe some bodybuilders who don't have to get as lean as I do and be successful because of the way they carry body fat and they're just much more genetically gifted.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, the difference between me, because this is a minor point, like a panel decision on assessing pro quality was the difference between me getting a pro card and not getting a pro card this season. At the WBF New Zealand, I actually won the show. I won the bodybuilding overall, and they could have awarded a pro card, but they assessed that because the show was too small, I needed to be at pro caliber standards, and I wasn't yet in peak condition. So they said, we're erring on the side of conservatism. We're not going to give you one.
No way.
And
Really?
then, yeah, so I didn't meet the pro standard in the first show that I did. And this is something that's not common and it doesn't stay. It's something that New Zealand is doing or has done for the first 2 years. We did it last year as well. Because the shows are small and as the federation grows, like you actually want pro representation at the international level. But
Hmm.
locally, the typical, like the stock standard rule is that there's 8 in the bodybuilding division, there's 1 pro card up for grabs, right? And if it's a super pro qualifier, then if you have 8 in the division, you can do it by winning a division. And then if you win the overall and you're not that division, there's 2 pro cards, etc.